Now, New Zealand's farmers are risking having regenerative agriculture defined for them if they don't take ownership of the debate around its meaning. Speaking at a collaborative NZX and Beef and Lamb New Zealand webinar on what regenerative agriculture means, US-based Alpha Food Labs futurist Mike Lee explained that it could be an unfavourable decision forced on farmers and they will lose control of the narrative if they're not careful. He said rather than thinking about the term, people should think about their mental framework around leaving the earth in a better way. And if we can get other people to agree with you and support you on that, then you've got a definition. Every farmer and grower I know wants to leave the earth and the waterways in a better place. So are we actually closer to regenerative agricultural's term than we know? Hosting the webinar last week was Head of Analytics for NZX, Julia Jones, and she joins us now. Julia, welcome back to Sarah's Country.
Thank you so much for having me.
Firstly, before we talk, shall we talk about moisture?
Yeah.
How's that look at your place?
Look, it's green, but it's very dry. So we've had a little bit of rain. We've been lucky. We've had a very fortunate bit of fall, but we could definitely do some more.
Yeah, I heard the term green dry the other day from a farmer, and it absolutely is real. The false sense of the security and the colour on the top. Now, one of the great things I took from Mike Lee's discussion from the regenerative webinar was he said the opportunity is there's subsidies locked farmers in our competing markets and they're locked into a monoculture farming model. And this should surely be New Zealand's advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Mike was he was very much about it being farmer-led or grower-led. So this isn't about things being imposed upon people who are growing food. It's actually about ensuring that we own the narrative and we own New Zealand's narrative because every country has a different, theory around what regenerative is. And a lot of the practice that we do are very close to it. And I know for those very hardcore traditionalists or might feel differently and might see it differently. But ultimately, we are very close to regenerative in New Zealand. So what he was trying to tell us was, don't miss the opportunity. We can not only make value out of this for New Zealand, but we can also really be great thought leaders out in the world because we can only export a certain amount of food because we can only grow a certain amount of food. But what we can do is actually, have an infinite possibility to actually lead the world in this space. And as you pointed out, where there are subsidy locked farmers, it's very hard for them to change. And we really have an advantage by not having subsidy.
From all of your experience, Julia, and you've got that frontline discussion around what our markets want, and you've been bridging farmer suppliers to bring them together on this. How much is this is the emotion of fight or flight on these new opportunities and taking threat and actually transpiring that into opportunity?
I think for most of it, like when we look at it, we do a little bit of hindsight punishment. So there's this very big thing that we're poisoning the earth and we're doing all these bad things. And I think if we reverse time and went back 10 years, what we would find is that everyone wanted farmers to produce more. Everyone wanted farmers to put more fertilizer on. Everybody wanted, there was this real push, and it came from, the industry bodies, and it came from government, and it came from the banks. So if you imagine you're a farmer and you've got this ecosystem of people around you, everyone's bashing you on the head saying more, 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 more. So what I think the feeling is when we talk about regenerative, if you're not doing it, or if you are using fertilizer or you are doing another method, there's that sense that I'm being punished for what I know and what has served us well. The key is what will serve us in the future, and we might need to leave some of those things behind. And I'm not making a judgment call on that. I'm just saying that, we may need to leave some of the things we've done before behind to really get value in the future.
How do New Zealand farmers actually dictate to brands what regenerative agriculture actually means when it has been an international term and we define this in our own way of certification? Such as grass-fed and GMO. These are things consumers want to cling to certification.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to remember is a consumer doesn't really think of the word regenerative. So what they go is they go, look, I really want to eat food. And again, we've got to stop lumping everyone together because everyone's a unique voice and they're a unique person and they have unique thoughts. So out of the billions of consumers, there's subsets and subsets and subsets. So, the people that may be attracted to this actually go, I want healthy food that's good for my body and I want food that is grown and good for the planet. So they're not necessarily saying, I want regenerative, but what we've done is we've lost our narrative, or we've lost ownership of our narrative around how do we produce. And instead of talking about how we create value, let's start talking about how we capture the value of how we already produce. Because let's face it, a lot of our farming methodologies are very close, and there's always improvement. There's always room to progress. And I'm not making light of those who are very staunch in their principles that they apply around regenerative. But I think the other side of it is let's not desecrate the awesome work that we all do in farming, and we don't have to prescribe tactics. We have aligned principles. Let's not prescribe the tactics and how we do it. Because you know what? You and I could be next door to each other, have the same topography, same soils. We are different human beings who make decisions in a different way, and we have different goals for our families, and that's okay. Just because you do something different to me doesn't mean that you look down on me and I'm a bad person. And I think we've kind of got a little bit of blame, a little bit of finger pointing, and I think there's got to be more acceptance. And look, people might hate me saying this, but more kindness. I think we actually do need to actually look and start thinking about how do we work together on this, and how do we protect our industry, our planet for the future, because we can own this. We can actually define it ourselves. Don't wait for someone else to throw a definition at us. Step up, and we need our industry bodies to step up, and I'm really proud of Beef and Lamb. I think all credit to them for having courage to come out with what could have potentially been a very unpopular conversation and leading it. And I think huge credit to them.
And also our suppliers as well in leading the way. I mean, regenerative agriculture is something that Nestle is jumping on heavily, but also Silver Fern Farms are keeping a very close eye on it. And I loved what Nicola Johnson, the GM for marketing, said, that the sweet spot is the intersection between pasture-based farming systems, healthy soils, and producing a verifiable, healthy product, all bringing those things collectively together.
Yeah, look, they're doing a great deal of work and research in this space as well to understand what does this look like, and again, what do the consumers want. And Nicola's awesome to talk to, because when you talk to her, again, the consumer doesn't use the word regenerative. What they do is all those things that she's labelled out. She gave a great example during it. So she said New Zealand at one point was the only grass-fed beef in market. Do you know that now there are 75 different labels of grass-fed beef? And boy, did we miss that boat in a way, because we just didn't, and that's beautiful because we're humble and we're nice, and I love that, and we shouldn't lose that. But at the same time, let's start selling how we produce the product. And we're going to have to keep moving on that, and consumers are going to want different, and people will want different. It's actually okay as well.
Do you know where there's a similar example of that is the term merino? And I know it's a breed of sheep. However, you have mulesing in a different farming practice in Australia, and that gets tarnished to a brand that we have absolutely subsided and has been eroded in brand value over the period of time because we didn't harness that as well. How do we take the concept of taitao, fit for a better world, and Damien saying industry, stand up, own this vision, do something with it. How do we actually take these things and functionally lock this together in a puzzle and move forward? Because there's too much of this stuff going on, Julia.
Yeah, look, I'm probably going to have a really unpopular view here, and it does come with love, but we need leadership and we don't have it. We've got some old leaders sitting in industry bodies potentially that need to step out, and that they're just not taking us forward. They're locking us into the status quo. They're not progressive. They're scared to make a call. I won't just blame industry bodies. I would say across the industry, we keep recycling leadership, so we keep voting people back into the same roles that they were in before, yet we sit there and we complain because they're not changing. So I'll tell you what, it's as simple as leadership. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's leadership.
I'm trying very hard to keep a straight face. Julia Jones, an absolute asset to the industry, head of analytics there for NZX, and that's head of the Regenerative webinar.
This is Sarah's Country.